Disappointing might be putting it light when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles 2020/2021 season, a year in which they went 4-11-1 in their record, and they were possibly tanking in the last game of the season with a chance to either send the Washington football team to the playoffs or with a win would put the New York Giants in the playoffs. Not only did putting Nate Sudfeld in for Jalen Hurts in that last game not make any sense to anybody, it possibly was the move that signaled and put the nail in the coffin in terms of Doug Peterson's career in Philadelphia. And in my opinion, it should put the nail in the coffin in his career in general. However, this video isn't about Doug Peterson or his career. This video is going to be about who should be the next coach to take over as head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. Not only are the Eagles going to have to sign a coach that is going to be able to work well with Jalen Hurts on the offensive side of the ball and be able to make good decisions with the GM when it comes to personnel movements, the Philadelphia Eagles are going to have to hire a coach that is going to be able to handle the pressure cooker known as Philadelphia sports media. Whether the Eagles are winning Super Bowls or not, or whether any team in Philadelphia is winning championships or not, their team is going to be highly scrutinized by Philadelphia sports media. And if the Philadelphia Eagles hire a head coach who can't handle it, then we could be looking at the same situation we're in now with a head coachless Philadelphia Eagles team. And with that being said, the Philadelphia Eagles need to also make a move in which the head coach has a quality of bringing energy to their football team. Say whatever you want about Doug Peterson's coaching style. One of the worst things that I think Doug Peterson did for the Philadelphia Eagles was have a lack of energy brought to the organization and the team on the field. And you look at any team around the league right now that is successful and was a playoff team or close to being in the playoffs at least, a majority of those teams have some sort of personnel member or staff member on the squad that is responsible for bringing a lot of energy. And sometimes it ends up being the head coach as well. One of those guys that is an incredible leader of not only his defensive side of the ball, but just an incredible energy bringer to the team is defensive coordinator Robert Saleh of the San Francisco 49ers. Now, even though the 49ers didn't make the playoffs, if you look at what Robert Saleh's career has looked like up to this point, he was with the Seattle Seahawks in 2012 when they won the Super Bowl, and again in 2013 as the defensive quality control coach for the Seattle Seahawks when they went to the Super Bowl. And since he's gotten to San Francisco in 2017, his team maybe hasn't ranked towards the top in every single category, but if you look at the team in 2020 when they were 5th in yards allowed and 17th in points, this team was without guys like Nick Bosa, Solomon Thomas, even Fred Warner missed some games, Jason Verrett, Richard Sherman missed games. Pretty much anywhere you look along this team at any of the 3 levels of the defense, whether it's the linemen, linebackers, or secondary, major components of this team were missing on the defensive side of the ball. And to be able to be a top 5 yardage allowed defense is possibly something that will not only earn him a head coaching job, but keep him around in the league for a long time. And like I said, one of the best qualities of Robert Saleh is that he's a young guy and he's able to bring a lot of energy to a team who, quite honestly, in Philadelphia, I don't know what the energy is in Philadelphia as an Eagles fan or as an Eagles player, because you're looking at a season that you just went 4-11-1. Your head coach made the decision of benching your possible future superstar quarterback in Jalen Hurts in the last game for Nate Sudfeld. And it's just a team that has had a lack of energy basically since the start of the season. With all of the Carson Wentz drama that happened, the defense ended up being pretty much shuttered and not having an ability to go out there and play their hardest because they didn't know if they had a quarterback who was going to give them the same kind of effort and give them the same kind of advantage on that offensive side of the ball. The Philadelphia Eagles defense was possibly one of the better defenses in the league last year and has been one of the better defenses throughout the league in possibly the past 5 years. But when you have that lack of energy from not only the whole team, but especially the offensive side of the ball, it doesn't give the defense any more energy, and it makes them start to shut down a little bit. But with Robert Saleh being the head coach of this team, not only will there not be a lack of energy, but Robert Saleh has also, I believe, been a major part of the draft process in San Francisco as well. If you look at some of the guys that they've taken in the past 4 years since he's been the head coach, you look at guys like Solomon Thomas, Fred Warner, On the defensive side of the ball, I'm only focusing on that side. Javon Kinlaw, Nick Bosa, like there are so many players, Dre Greenlaw. There's so many players that I would assume that Robert Saleh has been an integral part of the draft process, at least on the defensive side of the ball for the team. And many coaches are. And when you look at his record, as I said earlier, many head coaches in this league are very integral in the draft process, and they're one of the main voices. So the proven record of defensive players drafted by Robert Saleh, to me, is a good enough reason for him to be trusted with that as a head coach. Now, the Philadelphia Eagles are also going to be in need of an offensive coordinator because Doug Peterson basically served as the de facto offensive coordinator as well as the head coach. So, with that in mind, the Philadelphia Eagles hiring a defensive specialist at head coach will not really solve the offensive coordinator problem. So, two of the other possibilities in terms of hiring a head coach and an offensive coordinator at the same time, in my opinion, the two best options would be Josh McDaniels from New England and Eric Bieniemy from Kansas City. I think we all know that throughout Josh McDaniels' career as the offensive coordinator for the New England Patriots, he's been a guy who hasn't necessarily had the most options at his disposal as the offensive coordinator. However, they're a team that's always been towards the top of the league in terms of their scoring production up until this year, and their ability to put points on the board and use some players who maybe aren't very the first thought in terms of a number one weapon or a number two weapon, even in fact. The main guys of those last Super Bowl runs in the New England system were guys like Chris Hogan and Danny Amendola and Julian Edelman. And even though they had Rob Gronkowski, by the time they won their last Super Bowl, Rob was very broken down and a very broken player in terms of his ability to stay healthy. So with that in mind, a team like the Philadelphia Eagles, who are more than likely going to be bringing back most of their main options from last year, guys like Miles Sanders, Jalen Reagor, Travis Fulgham ended up coming on during the middle of the season, Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz. They have a lot of decent options at their disposal, and I think with Josh McDaniels as the head coach and offensive coordinator, that's really all he would need, just because of how good his scheme has been throughout the years. And if Josh McDaniels is able to spread a little bit of the knowledge that he learned and taught with Tom Brady, if he's able to do any of that with Jalen Hurts in terms of rubbing off some of that knowledge towards him, then that just makes the team even better, because Jalen Hurts played very well at the end of the season, but if he's able to elevate his play even more and become a more accurate quarterback and become a quarterback who doesn't throw as many interceptions, then there's no telling where this team will go in terms of their ability to make the playoffs and even possibly make a Super Bowl run. Now, the other name that I brought up earlier was Eric Bieniemy, and I don't necessarily think he fits in terms of his style as a head coach and offensive coordinator as well as Josh McDaniels does, just based off the fact that Eric Bieniemy is used to having not only the number one quarterback possibly in NFL history in Patrick Mahomes, one of the best tight ends in NFL history in Travis Kelce, possibly the speediest running or wide receiver in Tyreek Hill in the past 5 years, and just in general, the offense in Kansas City has been a very well-oiled machine with all of the very great options that they have. I mean, throughout the years of Eric Bieniemy being the offensive coordinator, the number 4 and 5 options for the Kansas City Chiefs were guys like Sammy Watkins, or guys like Le'Veon Bell right now, or guys like Clyde Edwards-Helaire right now. Those are guys who are 4th, 5th, even possibly 6th options when you get to guys like Demarcus Robinson and other names. So, with that in mind, taking what he knows from Kansas City, it might be a good thing to bring to Philadelphia, but the lack of talent going from Kansas City to Philadelphia is going to be immense, and I don't know if Eric Bieniemy is going to be a good enough offensive coordinator to deal with that, compared to the fact that he's dealing with the best possible skill group we've ever seen put together. Some other names to look out for would be guys like Brian Daboll, the offensive coordinator from Buffalo, although I don't necessarily think he's going to be leaving there anytime soon. There is a good chance that he does leave and seeks a head coaching position, but it probably isn't going to be this year. Arthur Smith, the offensive coordinator in Tennessee, I don't know a lot about him, but I know he's going to be a name out there that is going to be garnering head coach respect. And there's plenty of other guys out there. I would honestly almost even think that Jason Garrett, the offensive coordinator for the New York Giants this year, is in play, just due to the fact that it would mostly be a move to shame the Dallas Cowboys. And if the Philadelphia Eagles, could you imagine if they won a Super Bowl with Jason Garrett as their head coach after he got fired from the Dallas Cowboys? Whatever happens in the next 100 years, the Eagles fans would be able to hold that over Cowboys fans' heads for the rest of their lives. However, in my opinion, those top three options in Eric Bieniemy, Josh McDaniels, and Robert Saleh are all possibly the number three or the 1, 2, and 3 options for this Eagles team. If they don't get any of those three names, they might be able to have a solid season next year, but in terms of what those three guys could bring to the football team, it's not even close in terms of the potential. And each one of those guys has their own sort of given ability that is different from the others. Josh McDaniels is used to not having a lot of skill options. Robert Saleh is one of the better energy coaches in the NFL. Eric Bieniemy is possibly one of the best minds at offensive coordinator, and under Andy Reid, his mind probably gets even better. And given the fact that Andy Reid was the Philadelphia head coach, I wouldn't doubt that there's a really good chance that they go after Eric Bieniemy, the guy who's under Andy Reid right now. So, like I said though, all three of those guys have their own given ability that's different from the other guys, and each one of those guys could help this Philadelphia Eagles team out a lot. With all that being said, that's going to be the video for me. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you leave a like. If you didn't, make sure you leave a dislike. Any feedback from you all at this point is much appreciated. If you are an Eagles fan or NFL fan in general, make sure you let me know how you think about the video down below. Do you think I'm right? Do you think I'm an idiot? Let me know down below. And if you're new here, make sure you hit subscribe. If you're one of my returning 63 or 64 subscribers,